coming back from the show. We're at the distilling show.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm just on my way back home from Baltimore.
How was that?
Oh, it was great, man. It big hit, man. It was industry we've been trying to attack for a while, and now that we have our sorry, I don't want to get laser die cutting. I mean, the fact of selling, we were melting people's minds selling digital print, digital embellishment, digital cutting, no tooling. We brought all our old dyes, and it was just melting that whole industry's mind. That hold on, you can make me 1,500 boxes, like high and by. You can do 500, you can do 1,000. I mean, it was a very cool experience. I think we're onto something. So.
All right, knock on wood. This distillery show, what a great market that is too, and they understand embellishments, right? I mean, that's a market. Did you see a lot of embellishments while you're there? I mean, probably traditional style.
They're all traditional. That's what I mean. Like a lot of it was educational. Like we were, because it might have been a smaller show. There's so many smaller distilleries. Like more than half the time we were just explaining how it's possible with digital equipment. It was hilarious to see it just kind of sink in and the light bulbs go off. And especially there was a lot of creative types there in design, and they love the fact that now we can. We're not married to a package. If we drop $6,000 on tooling for some Christmas box, well, we can do it all again different next year and not have to be married. We've come across so many people that just they want to change bottles, or they want to change a design, but they're married to the tooling, and and offering that creative ability to them was super exciting on their end to be able to change it more often.
You're breaking a lot of their shackles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're breaking those shackles. They're not feeling like they're locked in anymore. And that's awesome, man. Think about all the other industries that you can then kind of bring this to. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways you can
go. That's right. That's what we're working on.
Very cool.
Distillery, craft brewery, and that kind of market, because it's smaller companies that are, if they want something unique, as you said, the tooling alone costs a medium-sized fortune, and they're limited.
Right. Absolutely.
Like alcohol still a thing? Is that kind of like a big deal still, or not so much?
I thought out of all people, I thought you and Eric and whatever would know.
Oh, maybe Eric would probably give us some good information on craft.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, a lot of it is, at least from the bourbon side of it, it's the same houses. It's just multiple brands, right? So it's the same. It's not necessarily a small craft company making it, but the brands, they're trying to make them look like small craft things. But the advantage is there. I think what they want to do from a packaging perspective, and even from a labeling perspective, is to have that high end, because perception is reality and you can sell it for more. But also, to Rob's point, like multiple releases of things that you can do differently and creatively, and you're not locked in, to X, Y, and Z, because that market is very susceptible to that, right? Like the bourbon hunter market is like, I want that new thing.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and then that's going to get. I think that's going to get bigger and bigger. That craziness, and I actually think there's probably going to continue. There are craft distillers out there that are doing cool stuff. And I think that market's going to continue to grow. So offering the ability, like you said, Sabine, to have these lower investment players be able to do cooler stuff with their packaging, with their, not have to invest a bunch in dyes or whatever, and pivot and small runs. I think that's going to continue to be an opportunity in that market that I see, and I spend a lot of time in it. I've probably got 400 bottles of bourbon at this point.
No, I just realized you have a brewing t-shirt on, Eric. I didn't see that before.
Oh, yeah. Surly Brewing, Twin Cities. Great beer. Great beer.
Crazy question for you, Eric. And by the way, I'd like to everybody welcome Eric on this call. Eric is now part of Tactile, so he's joined our team as our Chief Experience Officer. So we're super proud to have him as part of our family. But Eric, you are a collector, right? So you go out and you really collect some of the stuff. What kind of premium are you willing to pay on a bourbon that has maybe a specialty run or a low run? I mean, is there a number in your head? Is it like 10%, 20%, 50%, 100% when you see something that only made 200 bottles of?
Yeah, it's in the bourbon world, it's insane. It's probably hundreds of percent, right? Because like if you can't, like Pappy is just, I'm kind of a bad example because I'm a little jaded now. Like I'm out of that collector phase, and I'm just sort of like I know
I'm
what's
just drinking it.
I know what's good to drink, and I know that I can get like, for instance, like Pappy Van Winkle is the exact same mash bill as just a regular bourbon. It's made in the same exact place or whatever. But to your point, I think the premiums are really, really high in stuff that you can't get. I mean, the fact that I'm a member of a Facebook group solely devoted to hunting bourbon in Ohio. And when I say hunting bourbon, I mean they know what stores, what time, what their distribution is from the state. It's a state-controlled liquor agency. Um, Same thing in Kentucky. I mean, I've got my nephew who is my secret source for hard to get stuff. He goes to Walgreens and CVS and at 8 o'clock in the morning and just buys a case of it and then resells it. So the premium is really high on any collectible. Scarcity just drives pricing, as everybody knows. But when you combine scarcity with good product with compelling packaging, it's just a rocket ship. I mean, it's just you can get whatever you want to ask for it.
The whole thing is, doing scarce runs like Rob was talking about with traditional methods costs really an arm and a leg. If you're able to,
Prohibitive.
yeah. So if you could do it digitally and still have maybe a variable data foil where 1 out of 200, 2 out of 200 on the actual bottle itself, talk about skyrocketing prices. That's fantastic. Great job.
What I would argue is like that opens up the market for a small distiller to look way bigger, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally.
Right. You can make now the bourbon's got to be decent because we're people that are going to pay those high prices have the palate for it. But you can take your small little brand and put it in the kind of packaging that looks like only the Pappy Van Winkle can afford to do that. The big 7 distillers in Kentucky for bourbon at least. So it opens up that market for those smaller players, to Sabine's
Yeah.
point.
And Eric, that's exactly what we were selling on it. Oh, sorry, Matt. I was saying that's exactly what we were selling on that at this show, was being able to flex. Like you might be as small as your first launch, but it doesn't mean you can't flex with your packaging and look like a big dog, like right out the gate with this,
100%.
with all the digital, technology.
100%. 100%. And you'll at least fool them until they drink it.
Oh my God.
But then if you make really good stuff, they're gonna buy it for the taste. But
it's a good experience.
You gotta at least get that. You gotta at least get them to pull it off the shelf and take it to the counter for sure.
So they're gonna you might get one sale, but not a repeat sale.
Well,
depends on how good you are at making it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a higher chance of a repeat sale if they try it once.
I just wanted to say, because the point is you have to get the first sale.
Right.
And if you root cheap, it doesn't matter how good the product is. And just imagine Eric is brewing his own, in his basement, whatever. And it's the most amazing stuff. If it looks cheap, nobody's going to buy it in the first place. You already have to convince people the packaging is basically a reflection of the quality.
And do you imagine how many times people have bought tequila in a glass skull?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever drank that stuff?
No.
Dan Aykroyd, right?
It's the worst imaginable. It's awful. It's so bad, right? But it still sells because it's in a skull, and people are, oh, let's get the tequila in a skull. Of course, after enough tequila, you don't really give a shit. But
Right.
my point is, if you're that small, to Rob's point, if you're that small distiller that's doing it craft and cares about what it is, the product's going to be good. But you can't get it seen if you're not able to play like the big dogs do. So the number one thing, or not the number one thing, the best possible scenario is that your bourbon is really good and your packaging pops and people pick it up and then they buy it again, right? And now you're playing, and only the big houses tend to be like Maker's Mark. I mean, there's so many different versions. Every Kentucky Derby, there's a new bottle. There's a new version of it, and you can do that with these technologies. So I love that you guys had that experience, and I need to be invited to the next distilling show, FYI.
I was waiting for this one.
So Eric, it's not just the bottle, is it? It's not the bottle
it's the
and the
next
label.
one.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
it's
not just
100%. No, it's so bottle is big brand, right? Bottle is like, I can spot a Woodford bottle like that, right?
Huh.
Because it's square, it's not round, it's weird, right? But yeah, I think probably the first most important thing is the label. And I think, like we all know and have an affinity for that tactile approach. Like if I'm looking at a bourbon bottle and there's another one that's got a cool label, but then I pick them up and there's a tactile quality to it. There's emotes. So
But
yeah.
what about some of them? I mean, some bottles just sit on the shelf and they have a label and you just view it. But then I've seen others that are in a box or a package or a tin of some sort. And what does that do to the value of it? And do you see embellishment on those as well?
Good question.
So that is a really good question. And there's two answers to it. One is a lot of times those are like bundled with like a glass that has a logo on it. And honestly, that doesn't have a lot of appeal. That's kind of like if I'm looking for a cool gift or something like that, I guess that's the case. But I'm just thinking of like, so like my favorite gin looks like a medicine bottle, right? And it's got a cool old time label, Monkey 47. So that I think it's what I'm trying to get.
Even like the Glenmorangies and a lot of the scotches come in like a nice box, right? Even
Yeah, or think about Crown, right? That's like,
yep.
like everybody. I mean, I see people all the time. I mean, in the poker community, a lot of times they'll have a Crown bag with poker chips in it in their backpack. Like I see people reuse that thing. So I think what I'm getting at, Matt, is yeah, it's the totality of the package. So when I say when I think package, it's the experience. When I say package, I'm not talking about a box or a tin or a thing. I'm talking about the whole package, the whole enchilada. How does it play together? How does the label play with the shape of the bottle? How does the box play with the shape of the bottle, or the tin, or what have you? I think you have to view it sort of holistically, because if you just put a cool label, now you go to liquor stores now and it's row after row of kind of cool labels. They're kind of cool, you know?
So I think that's a great point, and I want to kind of hit on Sabine on this. Sabine, how often do designers get to play on the entirety of the experience? Meaning, like what you just said, what is the shape of the bottle? What is the label looking like? What is the box that's coming in it like? What does it taste like? What experience does the designer, in your experience, typically have? Do they have access to be able to pull all that together, or are they usually
great question, actually, and great timing, because I just I'm helping two friends who are launching I think I can say as much as it's a distillery. It's still under wraps. They didn't make me sign an NDA, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But this is small quantity, small batch, different varieties. And I'm helping them, guiding them with the technology, which is good for me because I see again how little designers know about what is possible today. And their idea is really they have this big, okay, it should look like this, but how the heck are we going to get there? And it's really the totality of how is the brand going to look? How are the different bottles and the different, you know what I mean, the different SKUs look within that brand. They all have to play together, but they all have to be different, if you know what I mean. So the designer plays an immensely important role, because you don't want to do this on your own. If you're a distillery, this could look, and I'm sure Rob has seen ample of this at the show, this could look like an amazing hodgepodge. So you want to be, to Eric's point, seen as you providing value.
So
and that it is a valuable product. So you have to know, you have to have the knowledge, and they're doing everything, the whole packaging. It's been a longer project, as you know, packaging and usually takes a little longer, but they're excited about that, especially digital possibilities.
I've always been curious about this, and maybe some of you are too. Is let's say I create a new here. I just created this brand new bourbon, right? And I have my distillery set up. I'm creating products. Do I go see an agency, and
No.
and then how does that agency work? Do they say, okay, you're gonna have a creative director, or is the creative director on my side? Is it on the agency side? Like, and maybe Matt, also you have some good stuff to talk about this, but can you talk to us about the mechanism of somebody who's making it, the actual product, and then bringing that to market from an
Well,
experience point?
it's depending on the size. If you're like to Eric's point earlier, if you're one of the big brands, of course, you have the finances to, you'd work with an
Of course, you do
agent
it your own.
that then does the whole spiel, the whole rollout, everything. But if you're a smaller outfit, and I'm sure Rob has seen this at the distillery show, and there's ample of these there from craft beer to distilleries to you name it, they go to designers and basically the small design studios, because they don't have the finances, the budget for the overhead that an agency might bring.
Okay.
I'm not saying agencies are not great, but they need to start smaller. They
So,
don't have
so,
the
so just
finance
just to be
do the
clear,
rollout. Mhm.
there's a difference between an agency and a design studio. So those are two different.
Yeah.
Okay, important. Okay, keep going.
And Matt's gonna give me hell now.
Yes.
No, but it's basically, or in this case, the friends I'm talking about, that this is a designer, um, small studio, two people, but they're bringing in whatever they need, and this is really a tendency. They don't do this all alone. It's not a designer saying, "Oh, I write copy and I do this and I do that." No, they're bringing in the people that are needed at the given time. So they bring in a copywriter. They bring in an illustrator as is needed, but it provides them a more flexible environment that gives them more flexibility to service the client at hand.
Okay, so I come in, I have my product, I say I want to hire you guys to put the experience together.
Right?
How does that conversation go between the person running the creative on the designer or studio side and the owner of the company who's actually manufacturing the thing? Can you talk to us about what's a simple interaction like?
It's called a creative brief. So the first part is we want to figure out, what do you have in mind? What do you stand for? Because as you know, packaging tells a story. So if it is a small distillery, I'm always a big fan of you either disrupt or you tell your story. Disrupt meaning, and I have a fun bottle here from a gin bottle here from England, which is like, you look at the shelf and it's like, it's completely different. Or you tell the story, of the craft that goes into the bottle. You think it's just a label. No, it's not. It's a whole story that goes into this. So the key is really to find out what do you want, what is important to you, what do you stand for as a brand, and then convey this through the packaging, the label, the whole experience that goes into this.
And how do you advise on embellishments or not? Like, how does that become part of the conversation when you're talking with, I guess, the creative director or the person running the agency or the studio? At what point in time in that conversation does embellishments come up?
It doesn't start with embellishments for
I
sure.
can imagine.
I mean, the worst case is if you ask somebody, okay, show me some things you like, and then I'm like, I want it to look like this but different, and then the logo like that, but different. Um, we've all been there. I think I can agree with this one. We've been there ample times. We want it to look like that, but we don't have the budget. So really, the key is really to just come up with a general creative vision, and say this is like one of these two or three, which one is the direction you want to go into. And then once we get to the fine tuning stages, then we're talking about, okay, we can do this because, and this is why it's important for designers to know this, we actually can do this because we can do this digitally.
Right.
There are things you can do digitally now, and Rob probably has experienced this, where the tooling alone in the past has cost you $20,000 to $50,000, and you can do this digitally now, which blows my personal mind. It's like fascinating. So these things then come in when the client says, "I like this," and the designer then can say, "Yes, and we can actually afford this." because there is digital options. We don't have to pay for tooling, setup, the whole thing. So this is why it's important for the designer, the creative director, whatever the title is at that time, to know what is possible so that they don't say, oh my God, I know we can't afford this because the tooling alone is $20, $30, $40, $50,000. So let's stay away from that.
Right. And this is what Rob actually just figured out or saw live at the
Well, I
show.
could have told you this.
Matt, I'm kind of curious. What are some of your feedback on this conversation?
Well, Sabine, I like everything that you're saying. One thing that seems to be left out of the equation is the concept of brand management, and it's not a full-fledged agency. It's what they do here. You bring in the parts that you need. You bring in the copywriter. You bring in the illustrator. You bring in the graphic designer, me, and everybody works after a discovery meeting, a creative discovery, trying to figure out what it's supposed to look like, what direction it's supposed to go. And technically, we work with large brands here that already have their brand well defined. They have identity guidelines that are just set in stone. So trying to work with them to add the concept of embellishment is quite a challenge. You have to get them interested in departing or augmenting their already existing identity guidelines, which can be quite a challenge. They're like, well, what if we do your logo in foil? Well, that's a color. Our logo it's always reversed out in white. So then you got these challenges to overcome, and then you have to help them see the value in that you would consider it to be a campaign rather than a modification to their logo. You include it in a new campaign. So I don't know, brand management to me for smaller, less overall intense projects seems to be a good fit because it'll include the promotional items. It'll include the color management between putting their logo on a pen or a t-shirt or a letterhead or a product box for the influencers to circulate, that type of thing. So it actually, I think, can work a little bit better than an agency, because to me, agencies seem to have this just blinded focus of what's possible and what's not. And what I see here in the realm of brand management, it's like Sabine, we know the possibilities, we know what's possible, and so we can propose a campaign and a cost, and either they'll accept or they won't, and then we'll move forward with the look and feel of the whole thing.
Yeah, I was looking more at, I thought Kevin started his own brand. So yes, but brand management is important, and it can be done by an agency or a studio. Because, but if you're starting at first out, you got to start somewhere and establish this. What do you want to focus on? Do you want to be just different? Do you want to focus on your story? That kind of thing. So yes, it plays all together.
Let's say you are pitching to your customer, and guys, Eric and Rob, and I think you have another person. Now, if you want to jump in, please feel free. My question is, let's say you're pitching foil, how do you show them? How do you get them an idea of what that foil is going to look like? Is that something where you take something that has foil on it, imagine this, but with your on it, or do you show them your file with, imagine where this green
Matt, is this where I jump in and pitch tactile?
No, I'm curious on how it's being done today.
No, actually, it just happened to me with another client, with a designer. And yes, for now, what you do is you show the foil and you say, just imagine, because let's face it, it's very hard to do this in Photoshop, and I think we all talked about this, but this is why we need software like
we're not plugging anything. We're not
plugging anything. This is why we need software solutions, and they're coming out. They're still in earlier stages, most of them. Well, they're just coming out where we can say, okay, this is actually what it looks like. Because while you as a creative person, or we as a creative person or a printer might have the ability to envision this, for a client, it's like, wait, I don't know it till I see it. Well, on one hand side, this is the beauty about digital embellishment, because you can theoretically say, trust me, let's run one and see what it looks like. So this is the beauty about digital, because you can do smaller quantities. But that is definitely a challenge. It's a challenge for designers as well.
It's a real thing.
We're using 3 different foils here. Let me think. Let me close my eyes and think how this will look.
Right.
It's a challenge for operators too. It's
Yeah.
just, you design, the customer explains to you what they want it to look and feel like, and you're like, oh, okay, it's just kind of pedestrian, it's nothing really over the top. You just want some shine, you want some color, you want some foil, you want some varnish. Fine, okay. And then it's up to you to make it all fit together nicely, because this job I actually ran yesterday, and
Ooh.
there's varnish, large areas of varnish on the 2023, and blue foil on the 40 years of wishes, and then in the text at the very bottom.
Wow.
Now, the varnish doesn't touch the foil. There's a tiny stroke around the edge of everything, and it's different for each one of these pieces. So the bottom has a very, very small stroke. Years of Wishes has a slightly larger stroke. See how it gives it kind of a pillowy effect?
Yeah.
And then
Almost
at the top, we wanted it to actually run into it, but not touch. So there's just a 1 point difference between the 4 and the 2 and the 0 and the 0 between the foil and varnish. And I got it wrong the first time. I thought, I'm sitting there, I'm creating my masks and all that stuff, and it's like, I know this is going to look good, and then it comes off the machine, it's like it looks like shit. So I have to go back and figure it out, and then go back with the customer and make sure that that's what they actually want. So it's really value of live proofing. Of course, it would be easier if we had, software to just display that, where you could move it around and look at it and try and see because the separation is so subtle that we literally, for these big this is Make-A-Wish, by the way, Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they have absolutely no budget restrictions. This is the shape of their building.
Yeah.
Very weird, and then it opens up to the whole invitation, and then
Wow.
there's holographic foil in each one of the gears, and all the text is a silver foil, and then of course the ribbon has to line up exactly, and I nailed it. So very, very weird little piece, very hard to work with on screen, on how things fold and fit together, and then you have to I had to draw the die line. Customer didn't know how to create the die line.
Well, you got to keep one for the Gold Leaf Awards this year, man.
Yeah. So still, for odd, weird shapes and things like this, I wish I brought some others. We had little watch gears, and it's all cut out, and all the sprockets, and it's all done on the big machines upstairs, the robotic table cutters.
Right.
So you cannot, for the customer to approve a job like that, you have to have a physical live proof. There's just no way around it. There's so much that can go wrong.
Yeah, it seems like the software side of it, from what Sabine's saying, is the ideation, is like actually selling doing this, right? Then you're never going to get rid of that proofing of that holding, that thing. I think they can play hand in hand. Matt, I got a question, or it's a question for the group, but something that came up while Matt was talking. Is there an inherent barrier to doing embellishments or designing embellishments into certain projects? Because it sounds to me like it could be a higher budget for that project, but the people with higher budgets have the higher brand standards. Does that create kind of like a barrier between doing that? Because it seems to me like, and from what Rob was saying from the distilling show, it's like the disruptors are the ones that are more apt to do that with their brand, right? To kind of go crazy and do something different. What's the effect on being able to design for those kinds of projects with bigger brands, given that they have the budgets, but they also might have the stricter brand standards?
It's all communication. It's a learned art, actually, in how to communicate this to the customer. And it goes way back to when I was an art director, and I had 8 artists and 13 salespeople to report to. And a lot of times, if the salesperson couldn't sell it to the customer, they'd refer them to me, and they would sit down in my office, and I would show them on screen the value of what we were trying to sell them. Money wasn't discussed. Dollars were never discussed. They had to go back to their salesperson to verify all that. But once I could basically tell them what they wanted, and get them to understand and agree that that was fact, then everything would move forward very slow, very, very wonderfully. It was, you just have to develop the art to tell people what they want without letting them know, without letting them think that you're telling them what they want.
It's not an art form, it's a miracle every time.
The art of persuasion. I love it.
Totally. Totally.
Oh, very interesting. Rob, I'm kind of curious on your side. How do you typically pitch in a sales situation a foil? I mean, is that coming to you already pre-designed, or are people from your team or Diani working up mock-ups with Joe? Or tell us kind of what your process is to show.
Very similar to what everyone else has been highlighting us, and our big point is what we found is like we got to get it in front of people. You got to feel it, touch it. I mean, you can do some initial stuff, but you really got to get it in their hands. And we're starting to implement our 3D software, so we can show like these 3D modelings and working with this new software is coming out. And I think it's just going to get better and better. I think the better the software gets,
Yeah,
I think we'll be able to cut back on some of these physical samples but right now it's so new. We just got to get it out there. At least that's how we feel. It's like if I can get this in front of you, I get you feel it, and I can see a live box versus just some photos on our website. It's been much more effective for us. And then from the artwork, the same thing is, and you guys know on this call way better than I do that, there's a designing, but the huge value is designing into something that can actually be manufacturing your capabilities, and because we can make all kinds of stuff we have all this digital equipment. We can make so many things, but it doesn't mean that it's a business. Doesn't mean that we can make money off of it. Doesn't mean, so I think that's the key that we're learning, especially the high-end custom business that we're in is that aspect, and drilling down on that.
Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting. Guys, we got Casper all the way from, where are you today, Casper?
I'm home in Denmark, taking it nice and easy.
In Denmark. How are you doing? How's the embellishment market from a design perspective? Do you have anything that you can share with us with what you've been seeing in Europe?
Well, it was mainly for me, it was whiskey boxes and champagne boxes. I don't have anything with me right here, but I just did, as last time when we got interrupted, I was doing a tour in France and looking at all the embellished boxes they had down there, and that was good fun. It's more from a production point of view, whereas the ultra artwork is just, for me, it's really interesting to see what the machines are capable of once they're put in the field, right?
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Kevin?
Good. So as a designer, as somebody who loves to design for this stuff, what do you think of this conversation that we've been having so far? Do you have any kind of feedback on your side as somebody who is actively designing for this stuff every day?
It's a great question. Actually, a few things that were said here kind of resonates with a conversation Sabine and I were having the other day about how you kind of have to show possibilities and what's going to look good, right? It's not a very quick. If you start, and I ran into the same pitfall too, right? If you start with just without any knowledge, with just the sky's the limit, you're going to try a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of that stuff probably isn't going to work right away, right? Because, and I've seen this in a lot of pieces where, and I've had some examples, some customers ask us, hey, can you do this? Where practically 80% of something is covered in varnish, and then the spots we should be varnishing are knocked out and not varnished, right? It's inverted, and you end up with this glob of yeah, it's almost a flood coat at that point, right? And it's just this mass of varnish and foil that doesn't really represent what you're trying to represent. And I think this goes back to what I've heard a few people say. You have representation on the screen, that's great, but the screen doesn't always show you what you're about to hold, right? So I think that's just one thing that I think we can do for our customers is help guide them to what is going to work, what's going to stand out, right? If everything is standing out, nothing stands out. You have to be able to highlight specifically what you want, or in some cases, invert that so that what you want to stand out is not what you're highlighting, right? There's little ways we can trick the eyes and tell the eyes where to go. But if we're not teaching our customers how to do that with digital embellishment, they're going to use the product. They're going to print once and be like, this looks like junk. Why did we ever buy this? And they're never going to touch it again. It's our job to educate and show how to create value, not just you have a thing and now it's going to do magic for you.
Yeah, it has to be tastefully done. Yeah, for sure. So
actually, to tag onto that real quick, if I could, I find that funny, like tastefully done. Kevin, you and I were having a conversation about this the other day of what might look great to me might look horribly gaudy to you, and then to the customer may be like, no, I want more, right? And so it's like,
I think you struck a chord there. That left kind of gave it away.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's like there is a lot of personal subjection to it, right? Like personal opinions, and I think, Kevin, this is one thing that we started doing with some of the new samples we did. We have this series that we're doing. I wish I had some on me right now, but I don't. We made this series of all very similar images. They clearly all go together. But what we did one with a low amount, a medium amount, high amount, and a gaudy amount of embellishments. And so when someone walks over, they're going to see all these 4 images, and they're going to be drawn to the one that they like, which is going to be funny because it's going to be a little bit of a case study of, right, which is the most popular, and which ones are gone. And then you're also going to see, again, personal opinions of what people are gravitating to.
Ryan, but sometimes you have to save the customer from themselves. I mean, let's face it. If it's up to that, we all had customers who said, "Oh my God, Comic Sans is the font. We want it. My wife loves it. We want to use it." And we're all like, screeching halt, not happening. So this is why customers come to people like Matt and myself and other designers, because they need the guidance.
Sabine, how about papyrus?
Oh boy.
Is that the Avatar font?
Papyrus is like one step up from Comic Sans.
I don't know if it's a step up or down.
The cover of Avatar, the poster of Avatar, is papyrus.
Well,
amazing.
Let me put it this way: there is a very selective time and place when it works, but most of the time it won't. And this is why clients come to us, because they need the guidance. It's not just like, as Ryan and I had this conversation as well. It's like, if it's up to them, they might think, oh my God, I love this. The more shine, the more splash, the more flood of varnish, the better. And you're like, this is not how you want to be perceived. And this is why the conversation at the beginning is important to say, okay, who are you? What do you want to convey? If you're talking to Rob, if you're a small distillery, you want to be seen as this crafty, really, we're taking so much care every morning. I talk to every one of the barrels, and say hello and good morning and make sure they're all taken care of. This is not conveyed with super splash. Everything's foil, everything's flooded. This is a very different story. So this is why designers do what they do, because if it's up to clients, scary world.
Well, Henry Ford once said if I would have asked the customer what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Faster car. A faster horse. Yeah, buggy. Yeah.
I use that all the time. I think about that quote all the time, Eric, believe it or not.
Yeah, so do I. That's why it came to my head.
So weird. So Sabine, is this something that we're going to be able to talk about during this Paper Specs Live event in Chicago? Tell us what's on the menu for those of us who might be interested in coming to check out the event.
Well, I hope you're coming. I know Matt's coming and Ryan is coming, so it's going to be a great show as it is. I think the part I like the most. It's going to be really a uniquely immersive experience for designers and brand owners who love or believe in paper and print. Because I always say it's two sides of the same coin. Paper alone doesn't get you very far. Print alone doesn't get you very far. It has to work together. Because sometimes, paper, you have to print on it. And if you don't know what is possible, then that's basically the conversation that you've been having today. If you don't know what's possible, you will guide your client in the wrong direction. Or if you think, oh my God, I know this would be lovely, but it's way too expensive, not knowing what is available digitally now these days. This, I know that designers who are coming to our event always go away with. I always love, my favorite part is when they like, the lights go on. You can tell the lights go on. The possibilities are endless all of a sudden, and so that's my favorite part. I know that we have a lot of our attendees are very much looking forward to the workshops because they need to know the how-to. So this is going to be really a full day full of how-to workshops, inspiring speakers, and then my personal favorite probably is the exhibit area where we bring together not only paper mills but also the print technology, which I think is crucially important for designers to know what is actually possible so they can guide their clients.
Okay, so real quick, what are the dates again? So that if any of you guys are in Chicago,
or you need a reason to come to Chicago. I think it's a great city. 2 months out of the year, it's fabulous. And so it's right. Even Casper got this one. So it's September 26th, and it's going to be a full day extravaganza, so to speak. I always say, take the time out to recharge your creativity, to treat yourself to this, so that you can go back and know what is possible and fully energized. And that, especially on smaller print runs, and this is something that all designers experience these days, that you see the possibilities. And Matt will be there. That alone is a reason to come.
Well, I'm definitely going to be there. I think Eric's probably going to be there as well. So we're going to support you out there. Make sure that everyone knows about what you're doing. So we'll start really preaching the word. And thank you for doing this for the industry. I think it's important to educate people to grow for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. All right. Well, listen, is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about, or any cool ideas? Matt, do you have anything in particular you wanted to cover with us?
No, not in particular. I mean, I did have a couple things prepared in case we had a very silent crowd, but that obviously has not been the case today.
I learned a lot. I thought that was a really interesting. I really enjoyed the discussion with Sabine and telling us, what are those meetings like, and I think maybe we should do a video, like a role-playing video, so that printers understand what that room looks like and what that conversation looks like between a brand and an agency, or a brand and a design studio, so that they can fully understand how to position better. I think that might be a good idea for us to do.
That would be a perfect.
I like that.
That'd be fun. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks again for joining. I'd like to thank our sponsors, our main sponsor being MGI Digital Technology. And a big thank you to Sabine and Paper Specs, as well as the Digital Embellishment Alliance, for supporting our little community here. And we look forward to seeing you next month, maybe in Chicago.